Hi, fifth grade. Thank you for sending us your questions. Today, answering the questions, it's just going to be me. Miss Jessica is busy, but I'm going to go ahead and get started and answer what we have here. How are kids born with Down syndrome? There are actually three different types of Down syndrome. The type that Annalise, Jessica's daughter, and my son James have is called trisomy 21, and it just happens. There's no reason. They don't know why it happens. It's nothing that we did. It's nothing we didn't do. There's nothing we could have done to prevent it. It just happens right when the baby is conceived. There's two other types. There's one called translocation that actually is a genetic type. So if someone in your family, like a cousin or a brother, has Down syndrome, you're more likely to have Down syndrome run in your family. And the last type is mosaic Down syndrome. So if we're talking about percentages and we're talking about people with trisomy 21 and translocation, they have 100%, all of their genes have that extra chromosome. People with mosaic Down syndrome have smaller percentages, so it can be 1% of their genes has that extra chromosome, or 99% of their genes has that extra chromosome. How can you get Down syndrome? You cannot catch Down syndrome if you are born with it. It's something that happens at birth, and if you're not born with it, you cannot get it along the way. You either have it or you don't. How do you know your kids have Down syndrome? When Annalise was born, Jessica's daughter, before she was born, Jessica actually found out that she had Down syndrome through a prenatal test, and that means they go in and they do a sonogram on the tummy and they look at the back of the neck of the baby, and they can tell if the neck is a little bit thicker, they suspect that the kid might have Down syndrome, the baby might have Down syndrome, so they can do a blood test to confirm that, and that's what happened for Jessica. For me, they did that test, but they did not see that extra thickness in the back of the neck. And so we found out at birth. And when he was born, James was born, he had several different markers for Down syndrome. So one of the markers, our feet are like this, where our big toe is right next to our other toes. People with Down syndrome have what's called sandal toe, where they have a little space in between. Another marker for Down syndrome is on our hands. We have these lines right here that are not connected. And people with Down syndrome, their line goes, you can see it a little bit better there, their line goes straight across their hand. So it is connected all the way across. Another marker, James ended up having some heart issues, so he ended up having heart surgery at 4 months old, which he's fine now. His heart is fine, but people with Down syndrome are more likely to have heart issues. And so all of those things combined caused them to do a blood test on him. And with Down syndrome, you can test the blood and see if there's that extra 21st chromosome. And so that's how they found out that James had Down syndrome. And if you have any of those markers, it doesn't mean that you have Down syndrome. Sometimes people have a gap in their toe. Sometimes people have a line across their hands. Doesn't mean they have Down syndrome. It's just a marker for people who do. Can your children walk and hear well? Yep, both our kids can walk really well. James is getting better. He took longer to start walking than Annalise. Annalise started walking around your typical age. James took a little bit longer, but now he's walking. He just started going down the stairs by himself, which is really exciting. And he's learning how to run. Annalise can jump and run and do all of those things. And James is working on it. He's almost there, but he's still kind of working on it. Annalise hears perfectly fine. James does have a hearing loss, and so he wears a headband you might have seen in some of the pictures, and the headband has little things that go right here, and it's called a bone-anchored hearing aid, and it's really cool. You put it on, and you can actually hear here, if you plug your ears and you put the Baha on, it vibrates past your outer ear straight to your inner ear, and you can hear perfectly. It's incredible. Let's see. Do your kids play video games? They're just not into video games yet. James likes to sometimes play those games with matching type things, but they don't really. I think they're still kind of young for video games. Can people with Down syndrome talk? Yes. So people with Down syndrome, there's just kind of a wide range of what they can and can't do. James has a friend who started talking right when he was 1.5, like he was right on the same timeline as all of his typical peers. And he sounds, you understand everything he's saying. Whereas James, he is having a harder time. His muscles are a little bit weaker. And so that's a little bit different for him, but he's getting there. He's making a lot of vocalizations. If you focus sometime on when you're talking, how much your mouth has to do, how much your lips have to do, and your tongue, and your cheeks, it's so interesting to think about all of the muscles in our mouth that we don't even think about. We're so lucky that we're able to just talk and make all these sounds, and some people really have to work at it. And Annalise, you heard her singing. She, like her mom Jessica was saying, she can talk, but sometimes it's hard to understand, especially when she's in a rush or wants to say something quickly. Her mom has to remind her to slow down and say it a little slower. But she does a great job, and she's getting there, just like James. Why is it called Down syndrome? So there was a man with the last name of Down who discovered it, a scientist, a doctor who discovered Down syndrome, and that was where it came from. It was named after him. So it's not that people with Down syndrome are sad about having Down syndrome or they down. It's that it was named after a man with the last name of Down. If people are blind, do they see nothing or just a little bit? Well, I think there's a wide range, right? So if people are truly blind, I don't think that they can see. There's people that can't see anything. I think it's black is what they see. But then there's people that can see light, or there's people that can see and it's really fuzzy. I think the range varies, but that might be a cool thing to ask the Google. The Google knows things that I don't. And last, will James have Down syndrome his whole life? Yep. Once you have Down syndrome, you always have Down syndrome. What's neat about it, though, is that he is going to make progress throughout his whole life. So he may look like he has Down syndrome, but maybe eventually he's going to start talking. And so you wouldn't know by talking to him that he had Down syndrome. Or maybe people like you who are a part of these types of assemblies and lessons start to accept people with Down syndrome a little bit more, people with differences, and it won't really be a thing. It'll be like someone who has blonde hair, someone who has brown hair. We're all different, and if you look around your classroom right now, I bet there's not one person who looks just like you and acts just like you and talks just like you. We're all different, and that's what makes the world a special place. So thank you so much for these great questions. If you have any more, feel free to send them my way, and perhaps we can even set up a FaceTime or something like that if that would be easier. All right, thank you for being such a great audience. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and we'll talk to you soon. Remember to be the one. Bye.